Welcome to today's meeting of Cabinet. I'm Richard Clwer, Leader of Wiltshire Council. I chair Cabinet and will be presiding over the meeting. Before the meeting begins, can I ask each Cabinet member to introduce themselves? I'm hoping we're going to get this Cabinet meeting done in a record time, so brevity is the goal today, please.
Morning everyone, I'm Councillor Laura Mays. I'm the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Skills and Deputy Leader.
Nick Bottrell, I'm the Cabinet Member for Finance, Strategic Planning and Development Management, and once managed to do a Cabinet meeting in 1 minute.
Sadly, we're not going to make that. Come on, go.
Morning, Councillor Nick Holder, Cabinet Member for Highway, Street Scene and Flooding.
Morning, Phil Orford, Cabinet Member for Housing.
Hello, I'm Tamara Ray, Cabinet Member for Transport and Assets.
Hello, I'm Councillor Jane Davis, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, Send and Inclusion.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor Ashley O'Neill, Cabinet Member for Governance, IT, Broadband, Digital and Staffing.
Good morning. Ian Blair-Pilling, Cabinet Member for Public Health, Leisure and Library Services and Communities.
Thank you. If I can ask any other member to introduce themselves when they come to speak. I'll now formally open the meeting and encourage anyone watching online for the live stream, or I think this is likely to just be a recording. We're having issues with the live stream, but we are recording it. Will be put up later, to access the agenda and agenda supplement from our website. Apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Muntins. Anyone else? Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Does anyone have any comment on the minutes? In which case, I'll propose them. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Any declarations of interest? No. I have no leaders' announcements. We've got a number of questions from the public, which we will now deal with, running through them in order. So we have questions from Sally Ross, who is not present, from Tim Guy, who isn't present, from Christine Leerink, I apologise if I've mispronounced that, who isn't present, from Councillor Foster. Did you have a supplementary? If so, you need to use the mic, otherwise no one will hear you.
Thank you, Richard. Yes. And I will be as quick as possible here for you all. Thank you for your answers, first of all. That was quite useful. I've got three questions relating to the three supplementaries to the three. I propose to say all three, so you can answer them all in one.
Go for it, please.
Okay. Given that for the question number one, given this was one of the main reasons for setting up Stone Circle, why has only 4 or 5% of the properties been allocated to key workers, and will in future purchases give higher priority to key workers?
Actually, go on. I'm going to answer them as we go, because that one I can answer easily now. Firstly, I think key worker, I think it's a very dangerous term when it comes to Stone Circle. I think what we were looking for there was particular groups of worker that we know are really critical but have struggled with housing. Key worker, when you start defining it, virtually everyone gets defined as a key worker.
Key worker wasn't a word I used.
No, but
it was in
your response,
answer.
and I'm just coming back on it. So we know that in some areas, so there's been work around care leavers. That was one of the groups that we specifically identified. There has been progress there, not all of it through Stone Circle, but there has been progress there. The other group that I think has been most frustrating with this is the hospitals. When you talk to them, are very keen for this sort of accommodation, yet when you ask them to put people forward, we're just not getting it. That doesn't mean that Stone Circle isn't addressing some areas of very distinct need for people who really need lower cost housing but are not qualifying for social housing. But
yeah, no, I have the same problems when dealing with other organisations.
So sorry, go on. Question two.
Yeah, question two. Thank you for providing the reinstated value of the properties as opposed to the declared values in the 2024 accounts. Do you think it's credible that the difference in value and after adjustment should only be £5,000 on such a large number of properties, which is 163, which amounts to £30 per property? When the shareholders' cabinet last met, I queried the projected interest rates used on the budget profile for 25-26 and 26-27, as 3.7 and 3.9% was used. I then asked how was this interest calculated, and was it fixed for the term of the loan, fixed for a period of time, or was it variable? No one present was able to answer that question, and I was assured that you would get back to me on this matter. This is some 3 months ago now. No one has an interest rate on such a large loan. It's quite a material fact. And so how much reliance can be relied on the forecasting budget that was given? You also mentioned the debt would be repaid by liquidating assets once they exceed the value of the outstanding debt. Has the projection taken into consideration selling costs? And as a company, I believe Stone Circle is liable to corporation tax. And has this been taken into account when making the budget projections?
Okay, I mean, I think a number of these we're probably going to be needing to get back with. This isn't detail I can give you off the top of my head and hope to get it right. I will defer to Lizzie if there's anything that Lizzie can answer from what was just said, but I'm probably safer getting this back to you, but making sure it comes back to you within a good timescale.
Will that be even if I don't get re-elected?
Yeah, it's a question that's been asked. The answer I'll get back, but yeah, Lizzie.
I wasn't aware that there was a formal request in terms of the interest rates. I will pick that up and ensure you get a response to that, Councillor Foster, so that's not an issue. In terms of the question about return, what we need to be mindful of is the non-financial benefits that we see in terms of Stone Circle and what it brings in terms of the housing and the capacity. So that's one thing that is absolute in terms of the value and benefit that we do get is non-financial. And the fact that there is enough of a return to be able to repay those loans is significant enough for us alongside that housing gain. So that's one aspect. I will have to remind myself in terms of all of the other elements in terms of some of those. So we will be able to get answers in terms of all of your questions that you've raised again as supplementaries today.
Really briefly, Phil.
I was only to say, yeah, I mean, looking at the question, there's an element of debt at the end of the 50-year or at the end of the loan period, but then it would be perfectly normal for many companies just to refinance that debt anyway, because it's only a small part of the overall asset.
I think there are many options. Let's get the formal answer back rather than speculate. Yes, your third comment,
The
please.
third one was, given that the council's passed a climate emergency motion and aimed for net zero carbon emissions in the operations, does having 149 houses with an EPC of C or below fit with that aspiration, especially as our own regulated housing authority is endeavouring to achieve an EPC of B or above with its housing stock? Your thoughts on this and ideas are welcome.
We know it's always been a challenge. We know that we have, inside Stone Circle, certainly when I was there as a director, it was a frequent point of discussion. I would need, again, to get a specific answers in terms of Stone Circle's aspirations for the properties that are in there. There are certainly ones that are at D&E will need some form of upgrading work in order to be able to continue to be let based on government policy at some point in the future, but we're not at that stage with government policy yet. But it was always a challenge between, more so on the development side, about what could be achieved and still work in terms of the realms of market viability. So I think we should be doing what we can, but not to the detriment of being able to actually provide support in the shorter term and then look to resolve the retrofitting in the longer term. The consistency of government funding for this kind of retrofit is coming. It's coming slowly, and it's coming to mayors first. So it's sort of in my strategic view, in about 2 years' time, this is one of those areas that needs to be fed into that, along with other forms of social housing, affordable housing, other RPs and so on.
Yeah, my biggest concern was that there were some EPCs of Ds and Es, and I wondered why on earth were they buying houses with Ds and Es when the government 2-3 years ago were projecting that we by law would have to have EPC of C and above to let houses. This got delayed several times, and with the new government it might never come in, but that was the aspiration at the time. I didn't understand the logic in buying Ds and Es.
The only legal issue is around social housing and affordable housing, where there is a compulsion to get up to an EPCC at the moment. If it's a choice between not housing someone or housing them in a property we know we're going to have to retrofit as and when the funding streams come online. I'd rather see someone housed, given the kind of people that we're trying to support.
I understand that,
Okay.
but it was 2-3 years ago the government had predicted that in
It did, but-
2025 that it
but
would
there's-
have to be C and
but
above,
there's been
and
no
they were operating in that market.
But there's been no legislation, and there was no sign of legislation to deliver that. So, okay. Thank you. If we then move on to our agenda item. Nick, over to you.
Thank you, Richard. I'll be as brief as possible. I'm just going to really read through the executive summary here. It's a pretty straightforward item, I think. We're here to discuss in part one and then move to part two the contractual requirement that we have to replace the micro asphalt surfacing and associated civil works. The current contract is in its 5th year and expires on the 31st of May. Procurement process started in October last year in accordance with the legal and procurement requirements. In essence, we are in effect repeating the existing contract that we currently have in terms of the detail. It will also include the provision for additional spend on works funded through any external bids that might come into the authority during the contract period, and possibly to allow other Wiltshire Council procured services to be added through the contract. It will allow us to ensure the continuity of service, allow us potentially, as I've said, to pick up additional works. I'm assuming that now we are likely, if not definitely, bringing a third Bobcat onto the network in the next few months, that this will obviously allow us to deliver the additional Bobcat work. That will be 3 across the whole network to deliver, as it said here, Wiltshire Council services. The tender process is fairly standard. We've evaluated it based on price and quality. And the recommendation here is, as shown in the recommendations, that in terms of, it's necessary for us to award the contract. The tenders have been submitted in terms of price and quality. I'm satisfied that the procurement process has been followed appropriately, and the result of the assessment to identify the preferred bidder is described in part 2. So I am moving that we accept the report and that we move on to part 2 to discuss the detail.
Before we do that, I need to bring anyone else in who wants to speak in part 1. Do we have anything from any cabinet members want to comment in part 1? No. Adrian, are you standing in for Ian at this point, or could use the mic, please, if you.
By default, it looks I will be, but my contribution will be minimal.
Okay, but in part 2, not now. Okay. Does anyone else want any comments in part 1? Okay, in which case I will move that to agree. Move the following: to agree that in accordance with Section 100A (4) of the Local Government Act 1972, to exclude the public from the meeting for the business specified in item number 9, because it is likely that if members of the public were present, there would be disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Act, and the public interest in withholding the information outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information to the public. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yep.
All in favour? Thank you. If we can now move into part 2, let us know when the recording has stopped.
Yep.